Limbo. The first circle functions as a containment zone, not a place of physical torment. It holds the unbaptized and the virtuous who lived before Christianity, people who committed no active sin, yet lacked divine grace. Dante places philosophers such as Plato and Socrates here, along with rulers like Julius Caesar, conscious but permanently excluded from salvation. Their condition demonstrates contrapasso by omission. They are denied the possibility of change, left in perpetual awareness without progression. Limbo illustrates that hell is not limited to fire and chains. Deprivation of hope itself is engineered as a punishment system. By design, it establishes a hierarchy where even the innocent are trapped in endless suspension. It is the structural entry point proving that separation alone can be weaponized as eternal suffering. The Judge of Hell. Before any soul enters the deeper circles, it is judged and assigned its place by Minos, the mythological king repurposed as Hell's gatekeeper. His role is mechanical and absolute. Every sinner arriving at the threshold confesses their sins without resistance, compelled by a force that eliminates deception. Minos then coils his tail around his body, and the number of coils dictates the circle where the soul is condemned. This process is not symbolic mercy. It is bureaucratic sorting, the first procedural stage of eternal punishment. Dante makes clear that judgment is unavoidable. Even lies collapse on contact with Minos. The design shows that hell begins not with fire, but with compulsory truth, an enforced exposure that strips every soul of denial before their torment begins. Lust. The second circle punishes those consumed by uncontrolled desire through an engineered storm. Souls are driven endlessly by hurricane-force winds, a system designed to replicate their earthly loss of control. Just as passion swept them without restraint in life, the atmosphere itself now dictates their movement in death. Historical figures like Cleopatra and Paris appear here, not solely for indulgence but for the destruction their desires unleashed on nations and empires. The principle of contrapasso is exact. Surrender to passion becomes enforced helplessness. In Dante's design, lust is not treated as private excess, but as structural instability converted into perpetual turbulence where balance and rest can never exist. Gluttony. The third circle targets those who lived through excess consumption. The environment is engineered as a storm system. Freezing rain, sleet, and hail fall endlessly, saturating the ground into mud and filth. The souls are trapped here, forced to lie in the waste they created. The principle of contrapasso is direct. Those who consumed without restraint are now consumed by a hostile climate. Cerberus, the three-headed hound, enforces the punishment, ripping at bodies that regenerate only to be attacked again. Dante adds that at the Last Judgment, souls will be reunited with perfected bodies, meaning torment here will become even more intense. Gluttony is explained as a system of overexposure, where appetite is reversed into eternal degradation. Greed. The fourth circle is organized as a system of endless collision. Souls condemned for greed are divided into two groups, the hoarders and the squanderers. Each is forced to push massive weights, crashing them against one another in a cycle that never ends. The contrapasso is direct. Those who fought for wealth without purpose are now locked in a fight that produces nothing. Dante notes that many of these figures were clerics and church officials, their identities erased through disfigurement from constant impact. What makes this level striking is that no famous individuals are named. Greed was so widespread that its victims are rendered anonymous. Dante also explains that fortune itself, a divine force, controls the rise and fall of wealth, making their obsession meaningless. This circle shows greed not as power but as blindness, where endless labor replaces the treasures they once lived and died for. Wrath. The fifth circle is built on the river Styx, where the landscape itself becomes a battlefield. On the surface, the wrathful thrash and tear at one another in constant combat, locked in a cycle of rage that never ends. Beneath the water, the sullen are trapped, choking on black mud, their anger turned inward until it silences them completely. Dante encounters Phlegyas here, the boatman who ferries souls across this corrupted river, linking human violence to mythological order. At the gates beyond, fallen angels refuse entry. The Furies appear, and Medusa is summoned, proof that wrath escalates beyond human quarrel into defiance against heaven itself. This circle demonstrates that anger is not simply an emotion but a system of destruction, one that consumes both the aggressor and the silent in equal measure. Heresy. The sixth circle begins with a field of stone tombs, each split open and filled with flames. The heretics are trapped inside, their bodies burning for eternity as they oppose or deny the doctrines of the Church. Unlike the earlier circles, this is where punishment shifts from passive misery to active torment, enforced by fallen angels who guard the graves. Dante records Emperor Frederick II here, along with others condemned for rejecting the immortality of the soul. The contrapasso is exact. Those who spread false teachings about life after death now experience death in permanent exposure, their denial answered with fire that never ends. The environment resembles a cemetery, but one engineered as a furnace, a system where heresy itself becomes fuel for eternal combustion. Violence. The seventh circle is engineered as 3 rings of destruction. The outer ring is a river of boiling blood, a hydraulic system where killers and warlords are submerged according to the scale of their violence. Centaurs patrol the banks, firing arrows into those who try to rise above their level, enforcing equilibrium through constant attack. The second ring is a forest without life, where suicides are transformed into twisted trees. Their branches bleed when broken, and harpies rip at them endlessly. A contrapasso that removes the human body they once rejected. The innermost ring is the most hostile, a desert of burning sand under a rain of fire. Blasphemers are stretched on the ground, sodomites are forced to march without pause, and usurers crouch with purses hanging from their necks, marked by the wealth they worshipped. Violence here is not one sin but 3 forms of collapse, against others, against the self, and against God, each answered by an environment where boiling, mutilation, and burning are permanent states. Fraud. The 8th circle, Malebolgia, is a pit of 10 trenches where every type of deception is given its own engineered torment. Politicians who sold power are submerged in boiling tar, dragged down whenever they try to surface. Hypocrites walk in dazzling golden cloaks lined with crushing lead, their outward show turned into weight that breaks them. Thieves are bound and consumed by serpents, their bodies burned to ash before regenerating only to be seized again. In the lower trenches, sowers of discord are hacked apart and forced to heal, then cut open again in an endless cycle of mutilation, while falsifiers rot with plagues so severe that disease itself becomes the punishment. Malebolge explains fraud not as trickery but as systemic corruption, and every trench converts deceit into an environment where the body itself is dismantled. Treachery. The 9th circle punishes betrayal through immobilization. It is a frozen lake where traitors are locked at different depths according to the severity of their crime, against family, against country, against guests, or against God. The environment strips them of movement, speech, and even tears as freezing air solidifies everything around them. At the center stands Lucifer, his 3 faces grinding the greatest traitors, Judas, Brutus, and Cassius. His wings beat continuously, generating the cold that freezes the lake itself. The contrapasso is direct. Betrayal breaks trust, so the betrayer is bound in permanent paralysis. Treachery is explained as the ultimate collapse of human bonds, punished by absolute stasis. To see how flags became battlefields of identity and power, watch our next video. The most controversial flags, explained.